I'm Farah Bunch, and I'm a makeup artist.
Hello, and thank you for joining me this week as we get to know another talented artist from around the world of visual arts. This is Season 3, Episode 14, and I'm Chris Stafford. My guest this week is the Hollywood makeup artist Farah Bunch, whose work has earned her multiple nominations in Daytime and Primetime TV Awards and Hollywood Makeup Artist and Hairstylist Guild Awards. Her work over several seasons on the hugely successful TV comedy Will and Grace proved a pivotal moment in her career. Other notable credits include Dancing with the Stars, the Oscars, Sunset Beach, Entourage, Fuller House, and makeup department head on Frasier on Paramount+. Farah was born in 1975 in Toluca Lake, California, where she and her brother Justin were raised in the long shadow of the Hollywood sign. Her parents, the producer and 6-time Emmy-nominated film and television composer Velton Ray Bunch, and 3-time Emmy-nominated makeup artist Patricia Patty Bunch, who were once the disco band known as Strut, introduced Farah to a life on set from an early age. She was just 5 years old when she made her set debut, and she also has a couple of acting credits to her name. But it was always going to be makeup that would be the foundation of her career from the moment at 18 when she graduated from the Joe Belasco Makeup School. Her mother's status in the industry and guidance on set steered her into multi-camera shoots, which is the world she loves most of all, despite having early ambitions to be a pop singer with encouragement from her father. She remains inspired by her music and is currently writing a musical with her father. Farah recently obtained a license from the International College of Beauty and Esthetician and Cosmetology. She lives in Toluca Lake, California, with her 2 cats. Farah, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I love that you've been listening to the podcast. You've listened to some of your fellow makeup artists in other parts of the world.
Yes, it was such a great experience to hear just the differences, and how they do things, over the, would you say over the pond? Is that how you say it?
Across the pond?
Across the pond. That's how you say it. Yes, it's so different than how we do things in America. And, I really enjoyed learning I knew a bit that it was so different, but I really enjoyed hearing the process, and I learned a lot. So I love learning just different things and different ways that they have to go about doing things, and getting an agent there versus here, and just work experiences like how they are allowed to have assistants on set, and because we aren't allowed to have that, things like that, because we have such strict union rules. Our unions are so strict here. Things like that. So I was really enlightened.
Would you say then, from your experience, that it's easier to get into makeup in this country or in Europe? And I'm wondering if it's more difficult on the West Coast than the East Coast. What is your experiences, Farah?
No, it is very difficult to break into makeup here. I don't know if it's harder or easier there. I can't say that, but we have our unions are so strict here that it takes such a long amount of time to break into our union. We have such strict rules, like you have to work for 3 years doing 60, 60, 60. They call it 60, 60, 60 means 3 years of 60 non-union days, and it must be on a non-union film or TV set. And they will turn down any day that so you can't, red carpet days, press days, things like that don't count. So a lot of people will come in and think that they have the days, and then they just say no. So it takes such a long time for people to get in to film and television, to our union, Local 706 on the West Coast. And I think it's $7.90 on the East Coast, but I could be wrong. New York Union. So they're totally different from West Coast to East Coast, and you're not allowed to work you can't work in New York and you can't work in LA. They're two separate unions, and you have to give up your membership if you're to work on either side. So you can't be in both. It's very confusing and it's very challenging. So being a TV or film makeup artist is not easy here.
But what if you're on location?
You can be requested, but you can't. You have to have like a special request. So it has to be like flagged or a request by production. So yeah, it's difficult. And then you have to use a certain amount of local hires. Like I could be requested to go work, say, in Atlanta as like a department head or a personal, but then there's a certain amount of local hires that you have to use. So it's, our unions are very protected, and, our rates are really good. But I think that's what's driven a lot of the film industry out of the country. And because our unions are so high and because our rates are so good. And so I think that the film studios and streamers have discovered now that they can shoot out of the country and not have to pay our rates, which really by the rest of the, United States standards just gives us, a means to live just, a middle class lifestyle. But they're like, oh, we can go shoot in Bulgaria or, even like, the UK or anything like that, and just have to pay much lower rate, wages for people that are extremely qualified, the same amount of qualified as we are. And so they can cheat the system by not having to pay our union rates and our healthcare. And because, in the UK, they have universal healthcare, so they don't have to pay the healthcare and things like that. So, it's really different. It's very challenging. The unions are very challenging and very tight. So this is probably boring.
No, I'm just wondering though, if they haven't shot themselves in the foot somewhat.
I think like from the beginning, they shot themselves in the foot by what happened is back in, I don't know when it originally started, but we gave up residuals. All the crew members gave up residuals in order to receive health and welfare and to get health insurance. So that became part of our deal. So now, because a little bit of our paycheck, goes every week. And so instead of residuals, the companies would pay into our pension and into our health insurance. And so, they have to, it's expensive. So companies now are like streamers, even though they make massive gobs amount of money, they are saying, after the strikes, they discovered a loophole, which is, hey, we could go out of the country and go to Australia or the UK or Eastern Europe, and they don't have to pay any of that. And then they can also pay, much, like a lot less money to crew members who are really qualified, and they can pay them, much, much lower rates. Like in Canada, a department head, rate for a makeup artist is literally 50% of what a department head makeup artist rate is in the US, and they can pay them that and get away with it. And, it's really sad. It's sad for us. It's also sad for, say, a Canadian makeup artist, because the cost of living in Canada, especially Vancouver, is very high. So it's really unfair to everyone involved. It's unfair, to them to make less money than we do. It's unfair for us to get penalized, and lose out on the work. And the people that are winning are the streamers and the studios. So it's really a sad, sad situation, the film industry right now.
And you've been in the business now a long time, shall we say, all of your career.
Yes. I am what you call a Nepo baby. Nepotism, yes. I didn't have a choice of being in this business. My mother is a makeup artist. She is one of the pioneer, like original kind of females in TV. She was a big sitcom makeup artist. She was her first real show that got her a union was a show called Love Connection. I don't know if you remember that show with Chuck
I
Woolery.
do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then her first sitcom was Who's the Boss? And then she did like Married with Children, and Will and Grace was, first like big, big one. And those were all big. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah. So when I was 18 or 19, I wanted to be a pop star. I was a singer. And my parents were very supportive of the arts, but they both said, well, that's great, but you have to have a real job. And so I didn't understand that because I was going to be an international pop sensation, but I was like, okay, well, fine. I'll go to makeup school. So they sent me, I got a scholarship because my mom agreed to go teach some classes to a school called Joe Blasco Makeup School, which was where my mom went. And so I went to school, and then I started in soap operas. And because that's where you kind of, in our unions, you can work in daytime and not have to be union. And there you can get the 60, 60, 60, which I explained earlier. You could get 3 years of doing 60, 60, 60, and the 60 days in 3 years. But I ended up working in soaps for daytime soaps. I think in England they have primetime soaps. So we have our daytime soap. So I worked there for about 6 or 7 years, and I loved it. I was doing body makeup, which is a whole separate category at that time. They had a separate category for painting bodies, for making them tan, covering tattoos. And I was young, and it was so fun because everyone was gorgeous. All the guys were gorgeous.
But you're making it sound like it was a straightforward transition. We graduated from makeup school and straight into the business. Was it that seamless?
It really was, because I was a Nepo baby. And I hate to say that, but my Aunt Kathy worked on Young and the Restless. So she was the body makeup artist on Young and the Restless. And so she needed some help on that show. And so I went and helped on there. And then I started kind of hopping around from show to show helping. But, the thing about being a Nepo baby, which is interesting, and people go, oh, it was so easy for you. And it was because I had the contacts, I already had the contacts. But what people don't understand is that when you're a kid hanging out on set, I already knew how to act. I already knew how to, interact with all the different, talent and actors and producers. I already had been in that world. So besides learning, and I already knew a lot about makeup, and I knew my mom had left me. She was, my mom's a character. I'll tell you that. She would leave me on set to go to dinner, and I wasn't even union at the time. I was just 18 years old, and she would hand me a powder puff and say, I'm going to dinner, and you're just going to watch these people on set. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was terrified. And she would just leave, and I would be watching famous people, and she would go to dinner and leave me in just very perilous situations that I wasn't prepared for at all. So it was kind of like, just jumping off a cliff. And so people always would say, oh, you had it so easy. I did, but at the same time, it was, sink or swim. So it was kind of different. It was just, it was just right into the fire right away.
Was it terrifying?
Terrifying. I will tell you one quick story that was probably the most terrifying thing ever. She left me on a pilot at Paramount, and I was not union. And I can say all this now because she's, retired, so they can't do anything about it. And, Paramount, this is a union law. You cannot not be union. And she tells me, she says to me, okay, so I'm on the side of your set chair, there is powder puff, and it was is Alan Thicke, the late actor Alan Thicke. And she says, and his powder is in the left pocket. So just go up and you will just powder him with that powder puff. I didn't know a thing that I was doing. And you're just going to go powder him. So I didn't know enough to even check the powder or look at it or even pull him in the light. So I go up to powder him in between takes, and I powder him in the dark. I don't even know. He walks onto set. It was a dark powder, like an African-American, some kind of dark powder. He has brown circles, and they yell action. I don't even remember what happened because I was 18. I just know he had brown circles. I freaked out. I'm like, oh, Mom, this would happen. She laughed. She could care less. She could care less because at the time she had so many shows. She could care less about this pilot. She could care less that it happened. I was mortified. I don't even remember what happened. I just remember that I wanted to die, and she didn't even care. And her friend Elizabeth, that was with me at the time, fixed it. But it was awful. But those were the kinds of situations that I was in all the time. So people thought, oh, she had it so easy. And I did have it so easy. But at the same time, that's just one of many terrifying situations that I was put in that I wasn't ready for. So I didn't get any of the warm up that a lot of people do when they do, they do independent films that, are kind of, easier. And, these were like high stress situations. These were pilots. These were TV shows that were big TV shows,
So you had a mentor in your mum, which is great, but sounds like she was very forgiving of, your early mistakes there that you were thrown in, as you say, to, sink or swim. But it sounds like it made you, because it gave you the foundation, no pun intended, for the career that you've had.
It absolutely gave me the foundation. Yeah. So I made a lot of mistakes, and definitely it was forgiving because my mom had so much work at the time that she really wasn't, she was like the queen of sitcoms. So she really wasn't really concerned about being let go from something because she just had so many backup jobs.
Well, let's back up. Since, on the show, we do like to start at the beginning.
Sure.
Where it all began, because you're a North Hollywood girl, born and raised.
Yes.
And in 1975, and you have a brother, Justin. Was it just the two of you growing up? What was that like? What were your earliest memories?
So my parents met in a disco band. My father is a composer, and he and my mom were in a disco band called Strut. And so my dad was, a lot of times on tour with a country western singer called Mac Davis. And so my mom ended up having to stay home with us when he was on tour. So she had to quit doing the singing and the dancing and stuff. And so my brother went to stay home with my brother and I. And so that's when she ended up going to makeup school. And that was when my earliest memory of going to set and seeing set life was when I was 5. I went to set for the first time when my mom woke me up in the middle of the night. I remember being woken up and being told that, I can't remember if it was my dad or my mom, that I was driven to set in the middle of the night to replace an actress that was, I guess, a little girl that was being bad. And so they drove me to the desert in the middle of the night to play the young Sybil Shepherd. And I was paired up with Jan Michael Vincent, this actor, with his son. And we were supposed to stand in the middle of the street, and we were looking up the sky, and they said, "Look up. You're supposed to see a spaceship. Now look up and be surprised." And so, so that's what we did. And that was my really one and only big acting part.
But did it not give you a taste? Did you not think, oh, this is fun, I might do this?
I didn't. I guess, now I look back because I'm such a ham and I think maybe I should have probably been an actress because I have such a big personality and I really like attention. But I was always more interested in singing. But yeah, I don't know why I didn't catch the bug. But yeah, no, I really liked being on set, I guess, because that stuck. But that was my first time I was on a set yeah, that's my one and only IMDb credit for acting.
One memorable role.
One memorable role.
Going to school and growing up in that environment is all consuming, obviously. But when you did actually go to school, what were you gravitating towards? What were you interested in? I mean younger school, when you were like from kindergarten to middle school.
Oh, kindergarten. I was always into creative writing. I love writing. I still write a lot. And I still write plays and musicals, and I still dream of being a television writer. And I pitch shows and things like that now. I haven't sold anything yet, but I've come close. So that's really my true passion and my heart.
So that's what you want to be when you grow up then?
That's what I want to be when I grow up, for sure. And yeah, I really have a creative mind. But and then I also wanted to be a singer. That was what I pursued really, really hardcore from, I would say, about I did my first demo with my dad. My dad recorded my first demo that we shopped when I was 14. And then I wrote all my songs and stuff all the way. I officially retired from being an aspiring pop star at 28. And I was very serious about it. I even on YouTube have a music video that was shot by a guy that did Britney Spears and Madonna's video. So it's called Electricity. It's pretty serious. If you have time to Google it, it's pretty good. But yeah, but the whole time, my parents are so supportive of my music career, but they were sensible enough to know that I should have, that I needed to have a steady job and thank God, because makeup afforded me the time and the freedom of schedule, freedom from my schedule to be able to pursue my music career and have a job at the same time that paid really well. So especially back when I was doing makeup when I was young, especially doing sitcoms, like when I was on Will and Grace, and it was like the boom of multicam, because that's what I really do multicam. That's my specialty, which is that's the format of a live audience, shows with a live audience, with the laugh track and everything. But, the shows that are really funny, like Will and Grace, it's not a laugh track. It's a live, it's live laughter. That's what I really like to do. For anyone who doesn't know the difference between single camera and multi-camera, single camera are shows like Succession or, Big Little Lies, shot like a movie with one camera that gets shifted around, to show different angles. Takes an incredibly long amount of time for camera setups, and the lights move along with the camera. And you're there for probably, 14, 16 hours. A multi-camera, we shoot usually, 4-6 hours on a tape night. And in front of a live audience, it's more like a play. It's so fun. It's so fun. There's a DJ, there's music, guests come. It's the best. You don't get, it doesn't have like kind of the art cinematography aspect, but it's just really like, that's what Friends, Frasier, I Love Lucy was the very first multicam sitcom. That's the multicam is just, it's such a great life. So people that want a life, especially people with families, it's the best life that you can have. So I usually, that's what I specialize in, is multi-camera and live shows like Dancing with the Stars, the Oscars, specials, things, Emmys, things like that.
So was Farah then the little girl who played with makeup then, or played with your mother's makeup then when you were a child?
so me as a little girl with makeup, it's an interesting thing. I was very, I cannot say that I was very interested in makeup as a child. I would pedal my bike to the, grocery store or pharmacy and get myself some Wet and Wild makeup, like electric blue eyeliner, like just the most hideous 80s makeup. And I wouldn't listen to my mother at all. And she would tell me does not look good on you. And, I would do hot pink eyeshadow and hot pink lipstick and electric blue eyeliner. And I would not take any of her notes. And I just, and I had my braces and it was just god awful. And she would tell me, try to give me tips. And I would say, Mom, you do makeup on television, people. You don't know what real people like. Okay. And it's just so funny looking back now because I look at my pictures and I tell my mom, like, why did you let me look like that? She goes, you wouldn't listen. And one day I remember I went to a taping of a show called Charles in Charge. And there was a girl called Nicole Eggert that was an actress on the show. And she was so beautiful. And she had this long flowing hair with no hairspray. And it wasn't all, sprayed up like what we were doing in the 80s. And she didn't have hot pink, eyeshadow and electric blue. She had brown naturals. And she was the coolest thing to me. And I thought, okay, that's what I want to look like. And so I went home and I changed all my eyeshadows to, neutral, natural browns, just what my mom wanted me to wear. And I wouldn't listen to my mother, but I wanted to look like Nicole Eggert. And so that was when I finally started wearing natural colors. And, so that was when I started taking more of an interest in my makeup was, then in high school. And then it was funny because when I went to makeup school, I just discovered it was weird. It was like my hand just did these things. My hand naturally did the things that it was supposed to do. Like it knew how to blend because it was a gift like from my mom. It was the weirdest thing. Like, so obviously there's like a family natural talent that went in. So that's all I can explain. Like, I didn't have an early interest in it, but it's like a genetic gift because my mom is one of the most talented makeup artists I've ever seen. My mom is truly like loves it in her guts and she can do anything. And then, so I just have to say that I just naturally inherited something from her that I didn't know that I had until I started trying.
Were you a girly girl then? It sounds like you were all about dresses and makeup, right from the get-go. Did you feel that, very feminine and wanting to show your femininity?
Oh, yeah. Like you can see my like femininity when you see like there's high school pictures of me. And oh gosh, there's one that I have to send you that is so funny. Me in high school. And there's, there's all these girls next to me in these big hoodies because it was the 90s and they're all big, there's different versions of 90s. I'm sure that you can remember. There's the big hoodies and the flipped hair and Doc Martens and, and then there's me and I am like Cher and Clueless, with like this big, like fedora hat with like roses on it and a short little crop vest thing with, I was so extra, as they say now. Everything was loud and adorable. And I had this long blonde hair and big hoop earrings and red lipstick. Like everything was extra. So definitely.
Your own version of Loud and Proud.
My own version of that. Exactly. Everyone calls me Cher. Like everyone would say I was like a Cher from Clueless. I even had the Jeep.
Now, what about fashion? You talked about some of the fashion items and that were trending at the time, but was that something that was part of your image, the image you were trying to create as a makeup artist? Did you pay attention to your fashion as you were going out into the world, not just as a teenager, but when you were going into the business?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's funny because my mom, she talks about how like my mom has instilled this in me, and I say it now. It is so important to, I think, dress the part. And other makeup artists will completely disagree with me on this. But I think that we are selling an image, and I think that we are in the beauty business. So I always care about my appearance when I go to work, and I try to look really cute. And it's funny because one of my best friends, her name is Dawn, and she's a really beautiful makeup artist, blonde, adorable. And we would come to work and we'd be wearing like Converse and, a little sweater and jeans. And then my mom, this is before she retired, but when we were at Will and Grace, my mom was dressed to the nines with tights and blazers and, the whole thing. And my mom would tell Dawn and I, you girls are ruining the look of the industry, because we would be wearing Converse, and she would just say that that's not okay, because she just thinks at all times you should be dressed, 100%. But she doesn't know that my mom wouldn't understand that Converse were at that time extremely in, and so, but I do think that you should always look on trend and very cute. And some people just don't. I mean, some people in our industry don't care at all, which I think is a little weird, because I think talent does judge. To me, this is my opinion, but I do think that 100%, I personally always like to shop and look cute and make sure that I'm on trend, because I want to show that I'm paying attention to what's happening in the fashion game, so that, I look like I'm researching what's big on Instagram and what's happening, on TikTok, so that, and I think that shows in your outward appearance.
It sounds as if the way you were introduced to the industry, that your mother empowered you in many ways at a very young age. But I'm wondering if you deep down felt self-assured, self-confident to go out into this world and be judged just like the talent is once you get on set. Was that something that you were always comfortable with as in your own professional persona?
I think definitely. I mean, I think I definitely felt judged. I mean, this is a very superficial business. And I mean, I think that you always feel, you feel judged, and it's a very superficial business. And I think that, you sit all day. Part of it is you sit all day in front of mirrors, and you want to look cute. And everybody, especially in the multi-camera business, everybody dresses up for show nights, and it's a little bit different because everybody's, looking their best, and it's a little bit different. So you want to look nice, because I just think like we are a different department. We're not the grips. We're not electric. We're not doing construction. We are the, beauty department. So I do think that we should, in my opinion, portray beauty. But that's just me from the point of view, but that's instilled, definitely pounded into me from my mom. But I gotta say, is kind of bad as she's been about that, I do think I agree with her. I mean, on that, it's controversial because some people would think that that's a really bad thing to say, but I gotta say I agree with that a little bit.
Well, it sounds like you have a wonderful relationship with your mum, but I want to talk about your dad for a while, because he was a multi-Emmy nominated composer. So you grew up with that musical influence, as you said, which clearly was steering you in one direction when you were younger. What was your relationship like with him, and what kind of things did you do with your dad?
Oh, yeah. So my dad and I are, my dad is my best friend. I talk to my dad multiple times a day, every day. And we are so close. Like, I get my really dry personality from my dad. He's like very practical, and we are the most alike. He is so talented and he's really funny and smart. And, we're just very close friends. And he's always just been so supportive of everything that I do. He's so supportive of my writing career. He's the one who won't ever let me quit. When I want to give up, he will call me and be like, "Have you written anything today?" Because he thinks I'm so talented, and which is so sweet. And he's also very honest. And I appreciate that because he's had so many people audition for him throughout his life, and he would have to tell them that they weren't good, and he will tell them. So he's a really great guy. I love my dad, and he's just a super cool guy. He's so accomplished, and we're very close.
And is he still composing?
The last thing he did was Dolly Parton's movie for Netflix, and I think that was kind of his last thing that he wanted to do. He's 78. He just had his 78th birthday. So I think he's pretty tired. I mean, he goes to the gym. He goes to the gym every day, and he still plays fast pitch baseball. So he played college ball in North Carolina. So he loves baseball. So he's a pretty fit guy. But I think the industry's changed quite a lot for composers as well. They don't want to pay as much. Again, he still writes. He still composes with a pencil and the piano. And these days, all these young composers, they don't use, the symphony, the orchestras. They still compose, now they compose with the computer. And he can't even turn on a computer. Times have changed.
Yeah, do you play any musical instruments?
No, I mean, that's the weirdest thing too, is that I can write. I've got that gift from my dad too. Not like I don't know how to write music, but I can write melodies and songs. So my dad and I write a lot of songs together, and I'm actually writing a musical, and my dad's going to help, my dad's going to write. So we write a lot of stuff together. So I can write so many melodies, but I have him chart my melodies for me. Like if I need to have it charted, he does it. So, I tried to take piano lessons when I was a kid, but my attention span was not great. So I wish that I had learned an instrument, but no, but I love songwriting.
Was there any interest in any other parts of the arts than when you were younger? Did you get the opportunity to go to museums and galleries with your parents?
No, my dad took me to plays a lot. So my interest in singing came from my dad took me to see Annie at the Pantages, and I came home, and from the play, I remember distinctly, and I had watched the girl, sing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow," and I was like, mm-mm. I went in my room, "The sun will come out tomorrow," and I went, I can do that, and I had a moment where I thought, I can do that. And it was like that moment I went, this is what I want to do from seeing that play. And then from there, my dad would buy season tickets to everything and take just me to all of, plays. We went downtown to this theater, he'd buy season tickets. And so that was what we did together. So it was specifically art, the theater. That was what we loved. Musical theater, any kind of plays, things like that.
And how about grandparents on either side? Did you bond with any of them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, both of them. So my mom's mom was a dancer, tap dancer, and and then my grandpa on my dad's side, he was a drummer. So I had a lot of musical. I mean, both of my grandparents were really on both sides. I had wonderful grandparents on both sides, but so I had a lot of arts, a lot of kind of art on both sides. So really kind of artsy fartsy family.
Where did they come from? Your grandparents, were they immigrants?
No, they were my dad's side of the family was North Carolina. And so, when my dad grew up in North Carolina, he would play the piano for the white church on Sunday morning early, and then he would ride his bike to the black church, and he would play in the gospel church. And that's what was his favorite. That's how he got his experience. And so my grandmama was very religious, and then that was how he really got into his musical. And then my dad majored in music at East Carolina University, and then my granddaddy played the drums, and then my mom's side of the family, my grandpa, he was a basketball player he got a scholarship for basketball at the University of Arkansas, but he came out to Anaheim to work for Boeing, and they both worked for Boeing. And then so my mom, was like a surfer girl. My mom was a very pretty woman. My mom was a very, very pretty woman, and she was like a surfer girl. And then she was a dancer too. And then that's how she ended up meeting my dad, like I said, in a disco band, was that she auditioned. And so that's like, that was their story. But yeah.
So when you got into the business then, I mean, it seems like it was a given. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. If it wasn't going to be singing, it was going into makeup. So that was, as you said, seamless, getting into the business. But at what point did you realize you wanted to specialize in multicam? Was that opportunity?
Okay, so I went straight into multi-camera because of my mom. Those were the shows that my mom was working on, were the multi-cameras. And it's a funny thing because when I was young, I didn't understand really the difference between multicam and single cam. I remember when I was in high school, my mom was offered Beverly Hills 90210. And now this was the exact year that Beverly Hills 90210 hit. And Beverly Hills 90210 is a single camera. And she was offered it, and I was absolutely just devastated. When she told me she turned it down, I thought it was the most selfish thing that a person could do to a teenage daughter ever. I couldn't believe it. I said, she goes, well, I don't do single camera. And she goes, and the rate was terrible. And I said, I don't care what the rate is, and I don't know what single camera is. And how could you do this to me? You're ruining my life. I could be the most popular person in this school. And only years later, after Will and Grace, there came a time when, after Will and Grace wrapped and we finished, and there came a time in my career when sitcom multicams were not popular anymore. It was when The Office and Parks and Recs and Community and all those shows were really popular, and multicams really were not popular anymore. And I spent 8 years, and I had to switch to single camera. And I did a show called Greek that was on ABC Family. And we would shoot until 4 or 5 a.m. till the sun was coming up. And I really saw what life was like doing a single camera. And we would have, 4 or 5 a.m. calls. Then again, Monday morning, like switch and turn around. And I went, oh, now I see what the difference is. I had no life. Now, I had a great time on a show, Greek, because I was young. I was, 30 years old. And so it was different because I could handle it. But then going for 8 years doing that, and I realized I can't have this kind of life. Like, I don't want to sit in a set chair. I don't want my life to be sitting just in a set chair, watching other people's dreams come true, and then go home for 10 hours. You sit there for, 14 to 16 hours, like I described earlier. And then you go home you have 10 hours to go home. And then you come right back and you just sit there. It's horrible for your body. It's horrible for your, mental state and, psychologically. And then to not get any sleep like that, to not see your loved ones, it's so grueling. It's so, emotionally, physically, it's just terrible for you. And I just thought, I can't do this with my life. I can't just give my life, you know, to live a middle class lifestyle. I just don't want to do it. And so for me right now, it's difficult because I'm at a real crossroads where even if the business bounces back here, you know, in Los Angeles, I just don't know that I want to spend the next 15 years of my life, you know, sitting in a set chair. So I have to make a real decision for myself. You know, if multicams don't bounce back and I don't have that, I'm not sure that a single camera is what I want to do. I don't think I can do that.
Well, I was going to ask you about your private life, and because it sounds like, you know, you were very career driven. It was all about your profession.
Yes.
So where did that leave the social life, the love life, the dating, the friends and the social life? How did that all fit in then from college through the early part of your career?
Well, I will tell you, Chris, I have made some really bad decisions in my life. I've dated a lot of actors, which is not surprising because you know, I'm around them all the time. Surprisingly, I only have met one actor on set. So I've been pretty good about that. You know, mostly, but I've just met actors just because, you know, we're in Los Angeles and I tend to be really attracted to that sort of personality. I'm a big personality, so I really like a super dynamic person and a real charmer. So I think that gets me in trouble with the people that I pick because, you know, charming people tend to have a little bit of narcissism in them most of the time, unfortunately. But I, you know, because I've worked in multicam, I tend to have time for dating, but I just have definitely prioritized career. I think I wasn't ready when I was young, definitely in my 20s and even in my 30s. I never was thinking about marriage or definitely not kids. You know, I was definitely more like, what's the next adventure? And then now I'm kind of at 50 years old going, uh-oh, you know, I think I pushed this a little late. I mean, not that I never really wanted kids, but I definitely didn't prioritize kind of meeting someone. I was always looking for something exciting. And now I'm like, oh, wow, I'm 50. And now it's, you know, you sat on the shelf too long. You know what I mean? That sounds sad, but it's true.
What's on your bucket list then?
I just think now is more of the time. I'm not, you know, it's a little bit hard because I would like to settle down with someone, but at the same time, you get to maybe a point in your life at this age, you know, I'm 50 where it's hard to compromise in your life, you know what I mean? And I would like to, I think maybe move somewhere with a little more land because I'm right in the middle of you know, of a busy suburb. I'd like to move somewhere. I'd like to meet someone like a person with a little more, you know, good stable income and have like a nice little farm like Kevin Bacon and Kira Sedgwick and have some animals.
Would you head towards North Carolina? Would that mean you're coming back east to your family roots?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to move somewhere that's like, you know, where I had to, like Asheville or something. And like my end game basically is to move somewhere like that. And, you know, like I was in Charlottesville once and I thought, God, this is a place that I could live and, you know, someplace really cute and have just some land and, you know, like a cute town, like a small city, cute town type thing. And just have some space and animals and live definitely probably not in Los Angeles and retire someplace. And I would love that. And maybe do weddings and work in a salon. I just got my hair license, my cosmetology license, and do a lot of weddings, something like that. Because LA is not a great place for retirement. It's so expensive. And it just, even though the weather is fantastic, it's It's not a great place to live out your sunset years. But I've got 15 years left of that, so I better figure something out.
So, what do you find is most satisfying about the art of makeup?
The art of makeup is about transformation. And for me, the most satisfying part is making someone feel fantastic about themselves. And I think that's why there are a lot of makeup artists in the industry that don't like to do weddings. And I'm the opposite of that, especially when it's somebody that has never had their makeup done before. I really love to do makeup on people that have not had their makeup done before. And I love the shock on their faces when they see themselves and go, wow, I've had people cry like when when they see themselves, with a hot, smoky eye and they're so shocked at how they look. And their husbands go, whoa, and they feel sexy and they feel, so, beautiful. And that makes me feel like, wow, I did something. And that makes me feel like just because sometimes this business, you could be like, am I doing anything important? And sometimes you can feel like that, especially when you're sitting in a set chair all day long and you just get up in this repetitive motion and touch people up. Sometimes you can feel a little bit like, does my life have meaning? But when you transform someone and they feel really great for an event and they feel good about themselves, then you feel like, I don't know, like you added something special to their important day.
What would your mum say about you now if I was to ask her? I'm wondering what she would have said about the little girl who thought she was going to be a makeup artist one day just because her mum was. And the woman that you've become, as successful as you've become, following in her footsteps, well and truly.
Well, she's a complex person, so she she might
she'd make you work for it.
Yeah, I mean, she might say that. I mean, I think there's a lot of times where she's very proud of. I think she's gotten to the point now that she's very proud of me. I mean, we had a tough. We had an interesting time working together. There was a lot. Moms and daughters working together are a hard thing because for so many years, it's the daughter trying to establish a freedom, and independence, and at the same time, because there's so many. It's funny. There are in Los Angeles, and in the film industry, there are so many. Nepotism is a big thing, and so I have so many friends that are mom and daughter teams, and they all say the same thing, like oh, they have a hard time kind of working with their moms, and so it's because the daughters think, oh, then my mom's telling me what to do, or da da da, and then the moms think, oh, the daughter doesn't respect or appreciate. But I think it's a mixture of probably both. It's hard to be told kind of what to do, and then at a certain point, you want to gain your own independence and your own name and things like that. And I definitely do things differently than my mom. My mom's kind of like Jean Smart and Hacks. I don't know if you watch that show.
Uh-huh.
My mom's more of a character, and I'm more, I think a little more chill and relaxed, but I think we'd go about doing things in a different way. But I think she, in the end, is probably proud that she knows that she raised and kind of prepared me in a way that I'm kind of have taken over her shows and her accounts with her, people, and that they trust me enough that I have been able to, kind of not fill her shoes, because there's no one that could ever take her place. Like, she is a legend. No one is ever going to fill her shoes. Like, she is, to me, the best sitcom makeup artist there is. And, but she knows, like, these people hire me because I'm good. She knows that. Like now that she's completely stepped away and retired, like no one's hiring me anymore because they have to. They're hiring me because they want to. And I think that that makes her proud.
How do you cope with the pressure? Or do you see it as pressure now because you're so seasoned at this work? Do you just take that all in your stride?
I think, yeah. I mean, I think that there's definitely pressure. There is a lot of pressure. I think like sometimes you get your feelings hurt, and I mean, there's definitely things like you always want to do a good job, and there is definitely pressure. I know I worked on a pilot recently this past year, and there was this showrunner that I had never worked with before. I'd never seen her before, never heard of her. And she just kept giving me a hard time about this young girl's makeup and telling me, that she had too much makeup on and the girl had no makeup on. I could not figure it out. I mean, she was just on me, and she snapped at me in the middle of set, and I was so confused. I even took a picture because I took a picture of the actress and just said, I said, I'm really sorry. I just don't know what you want me to do here. There's no makeup on her. And I just felt like, I was being picked on, and then it was like, I reverted back to like being 19 again, to that feeling of being insecure and like I didn't know what to do. And I even sent my mom a picture of the girl. I called my mom after work and I'm like, this woman is picking on me, and she snapped at me in front of people in the middle of set. I was like, Mom, back to being, and my mom looked at the picture like, oh, she just doesn't have any makeup on. You didn't do anything wrong. And so, it was sometimes you still feel insecure. And then I had to tell myself I didn't do anything wrong. And yeah, so there's still that pressure where you feel insecure. Yeah, it's interesting, but you get confident, but then still one little thing can set you back to feeling 19 and insecure again. It's that dynamic, even though all these years later you still can feel like that.
So what next, Farah? Are you working at the moment?
I am waiting. I work on a show called Mid-Century Modern with Nathan Lane and Matt Bomer and Nathan Lee Graham, which is on Hulu. And we are waiting to hear if we are going to get picked up or not for season 2, which we were really surprised about because it's such a funny show. And we really thought it was going to be a huge success. And so we're kind of a little bit surprised that we didn't get a pickup. So I'm praying that we do, because not a lot of work here in the horizon. So fingers crossed, but I'm doing hair in the meantime, and I'm assisting in a salon, and just pivoting as they say, to make sure that I have some work in other ways in the future. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Ticking along. And when you're pivoting, you're also doing Pilates and yoga, I believe.
Yes, those are my 2 forms of exercise that help me de-stress.
Great way to distress.
Yes.
Well, obviously, there's a lot more to come in the future. Who knows which direction you're going to go in, Farah. But I wish you the very best of luck with wherever life takes you, because, life's a journey, isn't it? And you have to enjoy the ride,
It sure is. It sure is. It's an adventure, a journey. It's scary. It's frightening. But, this is definitely a fork in the road for all of us, crew in the film industry in the States. And hopefully we'll land on our feet. Hopefully something will help us all. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And we're going to continue our conversation on our YouTube channel. So do join Farah and I over there, where we'll offer a little bit of added bonus content. So look for our YouTube channel. And for now, though, for the podcast, Farah, thank you so much indeed for being my guest this week.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Be sure to hop over to our YouTube channel now, the Art Podcast, where we'll hear, among other things, about Farah's love of music and what her go-to karaoke song is. So join us on the Art Podcast YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on social media. On Instagram, we're the Art Podcast. You'll also find a link to Farah's IMDb and also her social media in the show notes. You can reach us here, as always, by email, theartpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget, wherever you're listening, to share this podcast with someone you think might enjoy the show too. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with the Colombian artist Catalina Gomez Berth, who was nominated by a guest from season 1, the cinematographer and director of photography, Ana Amotegui. So I do hope you'll join me then. In the meanwhile, my thanks again to this week's guest, Farah Bunch, and to you for listening when I know you have so many choices in podcast land.